I heard Mom tell Dad, just put all the credit card debt in her name, she's too stupid to notice. My name is Zoe Williams and I'm 19 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened 2 years ago, but I still remember every single word like it was yesterday. I was coming home from my shift at Walmart around 2 a.m., exhausted from working 35 hours that week just to afford gas and groceries. My parents had made it crystal clear that since I was old enough to vote, I was old enough to support myself, even though I was still living in their house and barely scraping by. I was fumbling with my keys in the dark hallway when I heard voices coming from their bedroom. The door was cracked just enough for me to catch every devastating word. Just put all the credit card debt in her name, my mother, Patricia, was saying with this casual tone like she was discussing the weather. She's too stupid to notice anyway. My father, Austin, chuckled and I could hear him moving around. You sure about this? That's a lot of debt we're talking about. She never checks her mail anyway, Patricia continued, and I could practically hear her shrugging. We can just intercept all the credit card statements and she'll never know until it's too late. By then we'll have paid everything off with her future paychecks. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. These were my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, talking about destroying my financial future like it was some kind of game. You really think she won't find out? Austin asked, and I heard the bed creak as he sat down. Patricia laughed, this high-pitched giggle that made my skin crawl. Austin, honey, that girl works retail and comes home dead tired every night. When has she ever shown interest in finances? Besides, she should actually thank us for teaching her financial responsibility. My hands were shaking as I listened to them plan my destruction. They started listing off everything they'd been buying with money they didn't have. The designer clothes Patricia wore to her book club. The brand new hot tub they'd installed last month while I was working a double shift. The expensive wine for their weekly dinner parties with the Hendersons and the Johnsons. How much are we talking about total? Austin asked. Well, there's the Victoria's Secret card, the Nordstrom card, the Home Depot one for the hot tub. Patricia was counting on her fingers. Probably around 30 grand by now. But think about it, baby. She's young, she'll bounce back. And we deserve this after raising her for 18 years. I felt bile rising in my throat. $30,000. While I was eating peanut butter sandwiches and instant mac and cheese because they never left real food in the house, they were racking up debt in my name for luxury items I'd never even seen. What about that personal loan we took out last week? Austin asked, and I heard papers rustling. Oh right, that's another $12,000 for the kitchen renovation. And there's the second loan for your new tools. Patricia's voice was getting more excited, like she was talking about Christmas presents instead of financial crimes. All in her name, of course. Her credit is perfect since she's never used it. My legs felt weak. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, still listening to this nightmare unfold. They had been systematically destroying my credit for months, maybe even longer. Every time I'd asked why certain mail never seemed to reach me, they'd brushed it off, saying the postal service was unreliable. You know what the best part is? Patricia continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Even if she finds out, what's she gonna do? She's just a kid working at Walmart. No lawyer's gonna take her case against us. We're her parents. Austin laughed. Plus, who's gonna believe that parents would do this to their own daughter? We'll just say she authorized it all and forgot. Teenage memory, you know how it is. They started discussing which cards to max out next, like they were planning a shopping spree. I realized this wasn't some desperate move. This was calculated, premeditated financial abuse. They had been planning this for who knows how long, waiting for the right moment to completely destroy my future before it even began. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every word I'd heard. When morning came, I called in sick to work for the first time in over a year. I couldn't focus on stocking shelves when my entire world had crumbled in a 2-hour conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. At breakfast, they acted completely normal. Patricia made her usual scrambled eggs and toast. For them, not me. I was expected to fend for myself as always. Morning, sweetie, she said cheerfully, like she hadn't just been plotting my financial ruin 8 hours earlier. Austin looked up from his newspaper. You look tired, Zoe. Maybe you should cut back on those late shifts. All that work isn't good for a young lady. The hypocrisy made me physically sick. Here they were, expressing fake concern about my well-being while actively sabotaging my future. I mumbled something about not feeling well and grabbed my keys. Where are you going? Patricia asked, suddenly sharp. Just out. Need some air. Well, don't be gone too long. We're having the Millers over tonight and I need you to clean the bathrooms before you leave for work. I nodded and walked out, knowing I was about to discover just how deep their betrayal went. My first stop was the bank where I'd had my checking account since I was 16. The teller, Mrs. Rodriguez, had always been kind to me, often commenting on how responsible I was for someone so young. I need to check if there are any other accounts in my name, I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression changed as she pulled up my information. Her face went from friendly to confused to deeply concerned in a matter of seconds. Zoe, honey, are you aware you have 6 active credit cards and 2 personal loans? The room started spinning. Even though I'd heard them talking, seeing it in black and white on a computer screen made it real in a way that knocked the breath out of me. Can you tell me the balances? She printed out a report that detailed my supposed financial life. Card after card, loan after loan, all with my name, my social security number, my address. The total debt was even worse than I'd overheard. $34,712. The applications all came from your home address, Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. The signatures, well, they look like yours, but something seems off here. Are you sure you applied for all of these? I broke down right there in the bank. Mrs. Rodriguez immediately called her supervisor, and within an hour I was sitting with the bank's fraud department. They explained that while the signatures looked legitimate, the pattern was suspicious. All the cards had been opened within a 6-month window, and none of them had ever been used for purchases I would typically make. Young lady, the fraud investigator said, this looks like identity theft. Have you given anyone access to your personal information? I thought about all the times my parents had asked for my social security card for taxes or for insurance paperwork. All the mail that mysteriously disappeared. All the times they'd sent me on errands when important-looking envelopes arrived. Yes, I whispered. I think I have. The fraud investigator, Mr. Thompson, was thorough and patient. He walked me through every single transaction, every application date, every suspicious detail. As we went through the records, a clear pattern emerged that made my blood run cold. Look at this, he said, pointing to the screen. Every single application was submitted on days when you were scheduled to work. Your parents would have known your exact schedule, right? I nodded, remembering how Patricia always insisted on knowing my work schedule, in case of emergencies. Now I realized she needed to know when I'd be gone so she could intercept mail and submit fraudulent applications. The most damning evidence was the purchase history. Nordstrom for women's clothing in size 12, my mother's size. I wore a size 8. Home Depot hot tub installation and materials, dated exactly 1 week before they surprised me with their bonus from Austin's job explanation for the new addition to our backyard. Ma'am, I have to ask, are you prepared to file a police report against your parents? Mr. Thompson's voice was gentle but serious. This is a serious crime. We're talking about multiple felonies here. I thought about Patricia's laugh from the night before, how she'd giggled about teaching me financial responsibility, while stealing my future. I thought about Austin joking that no one would believe them capable of such betrayal. Yes, I said firmly. I want to file a report. Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly. Good. You'll also need a lawyer. This isn't just about clearing your credit. They've cost you money, damaged your reputation, and committed serious crimes. You deserve compensation. He recommended 3 attorneys who specialized in financial fraud cases. The first 2 were booked solid, but the third, Janet Morrison, agreed to meet with me that afternoon. Janet Morrison's office was nothing like I expected. I'd pictured some stuffy corporate environment, but her space was warm and welcoming, with photos of her family and motivational quotes on the walls. She was a middle-aged black woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Zoe, I've reviewed your case materials, she said after we'd talked for about 30 minutes. What your parents did isn't just morally reprehensible, it's legally devastating for them. Identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud. We're looking at serious federal charges here. She explained that because the total amount exceeded $30,000, this moved from misdemeanor territory into felony range. Each credit card application was a separate count of identity theft. Each intercepted piece of mail was mail fraud. But here's what really gets me fired up, Janet continued, leaning forward in her chair. They targeted you specifically because they thought you were vulnerable. They counted on your love for them, your trust, your inexperience. That's not just criminal, it's cruel. I started crying again, but this time it wasn't just sadness. It was rage. Pure, justified rage at being betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect me. What can we do? I asked. We're going to make them pay for every single dollar they stole, plus interest, plus punitive damages, Janet said firmly. And I'm going to make sure the prosecutor throws the book at them. Parents who financially abuse their children deserve the full weight of the law. She explained that my case was particularly strong because of the evidence trail and the amount of premeditation involved. This wasn't a moment of desperation, she said. This was a calculated, long-term plan to exploit their own daughter. Janet advised me not to confront my parents directly, but I couldn't help myself. When I got home that evening, they were getting ready for another dinner party. Patricia was wearing a new dress, probably bought with one of my credit cards, and Austin was setting up their expensive sound system on the patio. Where have you been all day? Patricia demanded as I walked in. The house is a mess and the Millers will be here in 2 hours. Something inside me snapped. I've been at the bank, I said quietly. The color drained from both their faces. Austin dropped the speaker he was holding. What do you mean? Patricia stammered. I know about the credit cards, Mom. All 6 of them. And the loans. $34,000 in debt that you put in my name. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Austin tried to bluster his way through it. Zoe, sweetheart, I think there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Dad. I heard you both last night. She's too stupid to notice. She should thank us for teaching her financial responsibility. Ring any bells? Patricia's face went from white to red. Instead of shame or apology, I saw anger. You were eavesdropping? How dare you spy on private conversations between your parents? How dare I? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You stole my identity, destroyed my credit, and committed multiple felonies, and you're upset about eavesdropping? We raised you for 18 years. Austin shouted. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. You owe us. I owe you. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I've been paying for my own food and gas for a year because you said I needed to be independent. Meanwhile, you're buying hot tubs with my credit. The next morning, Janet and I walked into the police station together. Detective Laura Clark took my statement, and I could see her getting angrier with each detail I revealed. In 20 years of investigating financial crimes, she told us, I've never seen parents systematically destroy their child's credit like this. Usually it's a desperate one-time thing. This is. She shook her head. This is predatory. The police moved quickly. Within hours, they had warrants to search my parents' home and financial records. When the officers arrived at our house that afternoon, I was at Janet's office, but she called me immediately. They found everything, she said, barely containing her excitement. Credit card statements hidden in your father's workshop, applications with forged signatures, even a notebook where your mother tracked which cards were close to being maxed out. But the most damning evidence was a recording on Patricia's phone. Apparently, she'd voice recorded herself practicing my signature, playing it back multiple times to perfect her forgery technique. Your mother literally created evidence of premeditation, Janet explained. She documented her own crime. I've never seen a case this easy to prove. The police arrested both my parents that evening. I wasn't there when it happened, but Mrs. Henderson from next door called to tell me she'd seen them led away in handcuffs. Right in front of all their dinner party guests, she added. Most embarrassing thing I've ever witnessed. For the first time in months, I felt something that might have been satisfaction. After a year of eating mac and cheese while they lived in luxury off stolen credit, seeing them face real consequences felt like justice. Over the next few months, Janet worked tirelessly to build our case. She hired a forensic accountant who traced every single fraudulent purchase back to my parents' benefit. The hot tub, the designer clothes, the wine for parties, even groceries they'd bought with my credit cards while leaving me to fend for myself. The jury is going to be furious when they see this, Janet told me as we reviewed the evidence. Especially when they learn you were working 35 hours a week to buy your own food while living in the same house. The criminal case moved faster than the civil suit. The prosecutor, David Jones, was just as outraged as everyone else who learned the details. "I have teenage children," he told me during one of our meetings. "The idea of doing this to them, it's unthinkable." My parents' lawyer tried every angle he could think of. First, he claimed I had given permission for the credit cards. When the forged signatures were exposed, he argued that I was trying to frame my loving parents out of teenage rebellion. When the voice recording of Patricia practicing my signature surfaced, he switched to claiming they were desperate and planning to pay everything back. "None of their stories hold water," Janet explained. "And the evidence keeps getting worse for them." The breaking point came when investigators discovered that my parents had been planning this for over a year. They'd started researching identity theft techniques online, and Patricia had even joined online forums discussing credit card fraud, though she'd been careful not to explicitly state her intentions. "Your parents didn't just commit crimes," Janet told me. "They researched how to commit crimes against you specifically." The trial lasted 3 days. I testified on the second day, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Sitting in that courtroom looking at my parents across the room, seeing them not as the people who raised me but as criminals who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Janet had prepared me well. When the defense attorney tried to paint me as an ungrateful daughter, I calmly explained how I'd been working since I was 16, paying for my own necessities while they lived in luxury. When he suggested I might have forgotten giving permission for the credit cards, I detailed every conversation I'd overheard, every piece of evidence we'd found. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: 6 counts of identity theft, 2 counts of loan fraud, multiple counts of mail fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. The judge, Honorable Patricia Washington, didn't hide her disgust during sentencing. "In my 30 years on the bench," she said, looking directly at my parents, "I have rarely seen such a callous betrayal of trust. You didn't just commit financial crimes, you violated the most fundamental duty of parenthood, which is to protect and nurture your child." She sentenced them each to 2 years in state prison and ordered full restitution plus punitive damages. The total amount, $85,000. "Furthermore," Judge Washington continued, "you are both ordered to have no contact with the victim for a period of 5 years following your release, and all fraudulent debts are to be immediately removed from Ms. Williams' credit report." I cried when the gavel fell, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of relief, validation, and yes, satisfaction that justice had finally been served. With the settlement money and my credit cleared, I did something my parents probably never expected. I moved across the country to attend university. I'd always dreamed of going to college, but between working to survive and having my credit destroyed, it had seemed impossible. Now, with a clean slate and financial resources, I enrolled in a criminal justice program with a focus on financial crimes. If my experience had taught me anything, it was that there were probably other young people out there being victimized by people they trusted. The transition wasn't easy. I'd spent so long in survival mode that actually having stability felt foreign at first. I had to learn how to live without constantly looking over my shoulder, without rationing every dollar, without the constant stress of wondering when the next financial disaster would hit. My freshman year was challenging academically, but I was motivated by something stronger than just personal success. Every time I studied fraud investigation techniques or learned about victim advocacy, I thought about that 19-year-old girl standing in a dark hallway, hearing her parents plan her destruction. I graduated summa cum laude 4 years later and was immediately recruited by a federal agency specializing in financial crimes. My personal experience, combined with my academic excellence, made me uniquely qualified to understand both the technical and emotional aspects of financial abuse. My supervisor, Agent Martinez, told me during my hiring interview that my case had actually become a training example for new investigators. "Your parents were so thorough in documenting their crimes," he said, "that we use their case to teach new agents what organized financial abuse looks like." Last year, exactly 5 years after their sentencing, my parents were released from prison. I'd built a successful career as a financial crimes investigator, bought my own home, and finally felt like I was living the life I was meant to have, not the one they tried to steal from me. I was in my office reviewing a case involving elder financial abuse when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something told me to answer it. "Zoe? Baby, it's Mom." I hadn't heard Patricia's voice in years, but it still made my stomach clench with old anxiety. "How did you get this number?" "Sweetheart, we need to talk. Your father and I, Well, things have been hard since we got out. Prison was terrible and now we can't find decent jobs. We're living in a tiny apartment and we can barely afford groceries. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything they'd done, they were calling me for help. We know you're doing well now, she continued. We heard you work for the government making good money. And we're family, Zoe. Family should stick together during hard times. For a moment, I was 19 again, standing in that hallway hearing them laugh about destroying my future. Then I remembered Judge Washington's words about protecting and nurturing, and I thought about all the victims I'd helped in the past 5 years. You know what, Mom? I said calmly. You were absolutely right about one thing. What's that, baby? I really was too stupid to notice that you're both criminals who destroyed your own daughter's life for a hot tub and some wine parties. But I'm not stupid anymore. I hung up the phone and immediately blocked both their numbers. Then I sat back in my chair looking at my diplomas on the wall, my commendations from successful cases, photos of me with victims I'd helped recover their stolen futures. They'd tried to teach me financial responsibility by stealing my identity. Instead, they taught me something far more valuable. That blood doesn't excuse betrayal, that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from toxic people even when they're family. I never looked back and I never regretted it for a single day. Here's what I want to know. Do you think Zoe is better off without that toxic mess, or did they lose something valuable by burning those bridges? Comment below with your honest opinion. And if you're addicted to stories where people finally say, enough is enough, subscribe for your regular dose of satisfying payback.